Hello. All right, I'm excited about this topic. I'm excited about all these topics because I love teaching voice. But this is a big one. We're talking about resonance today. And when I say resonance, if you forget what that means, resonance equals vibration, and resonance impacts tone. So we are kind of talking about anytime I say resonance, you can interpret that as vibration. And then what it leads to is the tone or the characteristic sound that we hear. If you say that someone has kind of a dark sounding voice, smoky, rich, bright, thin, nasal, all of these sounds we're describing tone, and the way we get tone is via resonance. So, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Mostly, I'm going to be saving the last 10 or so minutes for answering those questions. But as we go along, if something doesn't make sense, I'll do my best to help clear that up. All right, so quick little preview, bird's eye view. We're going to talk really quickly just about what resonance is. We'll talk about your primary resonators. Then we'll talk about vowels and resonance. And we'll end with common resonance issues and then solutions for those issues. So, big topic, jumping on in. So, resonance is vibration. We already said that. So, your voice, you can think of this as kind of 3 steps that your voice has to take in order to get out of your body and to a listener's ear. So, the first step is our breath. You can think of that as the fuel for our engine. The second step is phonation, or making sound. That happens within your larynx, your vocal folds vibrating together and creating this sound wave. Above the vocal folds, that's where resonance occurs. So the rest of your throat above your larynx, and then the back of your mouth, all the way to your lips, that is what we call your vocal tract. And the vibration that occurs within your vocal tract results in our tone, our resonance. So if you think about your instrument like another musical instrument, think about a guitar. We don't just pluck strings in the air. It doesn't make a really beautiful sound. In the same way, when you sing, we're not just hearing the pure sound of your vocal folds vibrating. We're hearing the vibration above those vocal folds. So that's why a guitar has a body. That hollow body is the resonant chamber, so that the sound wave created by moving air molecules when you pluck a string, the body of the guitar is shaping that sound, vibrating in such a way that certain frequencies are boosted. And then, that's a big reason why we have super, super expensive instruments and cheaper instruments. Super expensive instruments, a lot of time goes into shaping those resonant bodies. So all instruments work this way. There's something that's creating the sound wave, and then the body of the instrument is vibrating to give that instrument its characteristic tone quality. That's why a trumpet sounds different than a trombone, sounds different than a tuba. They're all created basically the same way. You are buzzing your lips together with your mouthpiece, but then that sound wave is traveling, or your air is traveling through that instrument, and the size and the shape of the instrument gives us the resulting tone quality. So just touched on this, your resonators, meaning your throat and your mouth, boost specific frequencies. So I might lose some of you here, but stay with me if you can. When I'm talking or when I'm singing, it's actually not just one pitch that you're hearing. So if I sing, all you think you're hearing is that what we call the fundamental, the pitch that will sound if you get out a chromatic tuner and it tells you what pitch I'm singing. But in reality, we have a lot of pitches that are sounding at once. These are called overtones or harmonics. And so your mouth and your throat, they boost certain harmonics, formants, overtones. You might hear them called all kinds of things. So you know how if you're dialing in EQ on a stereo or if you're a music producer person and you're messing with the EQ, either boosting or cutting certain frequencies, this is what your vocal tract does. So to simplify things, your throat is really good at boosting lower frequencies or lower pitches. And your mouth is really good at boosting higher frequencies. This is one of the reasons we talk about chest voice and we feel kind of more vibration in our throat and chest, and then head voice and we feel some more vibration a little higher in our body. Anyways, the result of that vibration is our tone. Okay, so your primary resonators, we already covered that it's your throat and your mouth, but we're going to get more specific. Okay. So one thing that you can't control when it comes to your tone quality and the resonance, you can't control your genetics. So we were born with a certain size and shape of vocal tract. That's why we sound different. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a great thing that no one sounds like you. You have a unique voice. And I know some of you might be watching this and, maybe you're frustrated because you can't make your voice sound exactly like Billie Eilish or exactly like Ariana Grande. And I just want to tell you right off the bat, we can learn from those singers, but the fact that you have a unique sound is a beautiful thing. We don't need another Billie Eilish or another Ariana. You have something unique and really cool to bring to the table. So we can't control our genetics, but we can control the size and shape of our resonators, and we do that mainly through the vowels and our vowel shapes, vowel modification, vowel shading. So a really, really quick experiment to do so you can hear just the different tone qualities in your different vowel shapes. We're going to move from an E vowel to an OO vowel. And I want you to listen really carefully, not just to the vowel, because you know what the vowel is going to sound like, but listen to the tone. So we're going to start on E, E, and now move to OO. E, go back and forth, and you'll notice that tone quality is shifting quite drastically. All right, I'll give you some quiet space to play around with that. Okay, so E is a very, very, what we'd call a bright vowel. And you'll hear voice teachers and singers sometimes talk about placement, specifically forward placement or back placement. And we're actually hearing this in its most extreme sense when we go from E to OO. So do it again with me. And now notice how it sounds like the sound is coming forward and then the sound is coming back. So again, now our air is still exiting our mouth. Our air isn't changing directions or anything. It's just we're perceiving the sound as moving forward and then back. You know what is moving forward and back is your tongue. So now pay attention to your tongue and notice that on the E vowel, it's going to be very far forward in your mouth. And then on the OO, it's going to be back and it'll drop a little bit too. Okay, so again, E to OO, and feel this tongue movement. It's going to be forward on E, back on OO. If you've never felt for this before, it's quite subtle, and you might have to go look in a mirror and see your tongue coming forward on E and back on OO. Another thing that's happening when you sing E and OO, notice your lips. Your lips are spread wide like a smile in an E shape, and then they round forward for the OO shape. So notice that now. Notice not only your tongue movement, but also your lips. And if you listen really, really closely, you can actually hear what I'm talking about with the whole concept of harmonics or overtones. I'm not going to get into that, but if you are a little bit more of an advanced student, you might be hearing these kind of like whistly, fluty tones. So try that after this call is over. Go from E to oo and see if you can hear this light, like whistly sound above the tone that you're actually creating. And that is harmonic or overtone. Okay, so we can control the size and shape of our resonators. We mostly do that through vowels. So let's go through each component, each like step in our vocal tract, and we'll talk about how we can adjust that and how that impacts our resonance and the resulting tone. So we're going to go from the bottom up. So we're going to start at your larynx. We're going to end at the lips. Okay. And I'll just run through these parts quickly. So we're going to start at the larynx. We're going to go right above that to the pharynx or your throat. We're going to go to your soft palate next, that thing that lifts up when you yawn. We're going to next go to the tongue, which we already touched on just a little bit. We're going to talk about the jaw, and then we're going to end at the lips. So this is your vocal tract. This is your instrument. Imagine yourself as a trumpet, and the bell of the trumpet. This is it. Okay, so starting at the larynx, find your larynx. It's this little bump or notch. It's cartilage, so it should be pretty soft. If you yawn, you'll feel your larynx drop. And if you swallow, you'll feel your larynx rise up. All right. We also sometimes call this the Adam's apple. So find your larynx first. Dropping the larynx, lowering the larynx, lengthens and widens the lower part of your throat. So let me give you one more principle. When our vocal tract is longer, we tend to get darker, richer sounds. So this is one way to lengthen your vocal tract. Think of, we've got this tube, and if we drop the larynx, I've lengthened my tube just a little bit. We also lengthened the tube when we rounded the lips forward for the oo vowel. Okay, so dropping your larynx, it'll give us a darker, richer tone quality. And in general, we don't want to sing with a low larynx all the time unless we are a classical singer who really wants that sound. But if you're a pop singer, your larynx is going to be adjusting. So I might not have mentioned this really clearly. All of the components, larynx, tongue, jaw, lips, all of these are going to adjust depending on the pitch you're singing, the style you're singing, and the resulting tone you're getting. So please don't think that you have one position that you're going to get stuck in and that's the golden rule. All of this adjusts. So that's why we're going through what each step or what each part controls and then how to modify it. Okay, so larynx, sometimes an issue with the larynx is it rising too much. So for singers who have an overly bright tone, we'll often use exercises like the dopey mum. And if you make this kind of dopey mum sound with me, mum, 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 versus mum, 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 mum. Notice the tone totally changes. And of course, I'm not going to sing like that. I'm not going to go mum, 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 mum. But I might use a little bit of that. Mum, 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 mum. If I want that richer, deeper sound. So don't be afraid of what we call unfinished sounds. It's okay to make a dopey sound or make a bratty sound that you don't necessarily use in your singing to that degree. But if we vocalize on a dopey mum, 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 that can discourage our larynx from rising too much and mum, 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 and overly brightening the sound. Okay, so another exercise to try to feel this larynx stability. first, I want you to sing oo to e, and we'll slide over kind of a wider interval. So it's up to you. I'm going to just slide over an octave. I'm going to go ooh. No, I'll do a fifth. Ooh. What you're going to feel is your larynx being low on the oo, rising up on the e, and coming back down. So try that for me first to hear or feel this natural movement and hear the resulting tone. Ooh. You can probably even see your larynx rising for that E and coming back down for the oo. Now, we're going to do the opposite vowel-wise. We're going to sing E. Notice how my tone already is way more consistent. Compare. Ooh. I'm going from really dark to really bright, and I don't sound like the same person. Now, E to oo. E. Of course, there's slightly different tone color because it's a different pitch and a different vowel, but now I sound like the same person. I sound consistent. The reason that works to help train some larynx stability is because we're using the slightly higher larynx on the E and the slightly lower larynx on the oo. We're using that to our advantage by going up in pitch when our larynx wants to be lower. If that doesn't make sense, it's okay. Just try it and hopefully you'll hear and understand what I mean. Okay, so larynx, next step up is our pharynx or throat. So you have a couple different like chambers that people will talk about. They'll talk about the nasopharynx and the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx. And those are just different components, behind your nose, behind your mouth, and above your larynx. So your pharynx, this is kind of an interesting one. When your pharynx or your throat is constricted, again, it's closing up our instrument. It's going to be boosting those higher frequencies. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not a good thing. So what I want you to try with me, because most of us, I think, are familiar with the feeling of constriction. So the thing to train is openness, relaxation, and stability within the pharynx. So the visual I want you to think of is the Mona Lisa. And you know how the Mona Lisa isn't smiling, but it's like this inner smile. She has kind of just a contented little baby smile. Okay. I want you to picture the Mona Lisa and try to smile like her. And again, it's like sort of between a smirk and like a pre-smile. But I want you to not do that first and then do it. And notice what you feel. I don't want to tell you what you should feel, but I'll tell you what I feel if I'm not doing anything versus little smirky smile. I can feel some space open up in the back of my mouth and the top of my throat. So that's the area we are trying to release and relax and keep open most of the time. Another way that you can find stability in this area is by using an shape. So if you say now morph really gradually from to E and notice what happens with that space. Okay, I'm going to see what I feel as well. So I'm going to go from to E. It's really subtle, but you might feel some constriction. Whereas the feels totally relaxed, the E might start to feel a little bit squeezed. So one way to keep that pharynx, what we call open, relaxed, neutral, would be to start with that shape and then move to another vowel sound, especially a problematic vowel sound like E sometimes is, to move from to E without letting the pharynx constrict. So keeping what we'd call a little shade of underneath. So we might describe this as in the throat, E in the mouth. So notice the difference. I'm going to go to E with no vowel modification. E. Now I'm going to keep that feeling of underneath. I'm going to try to keep my throat as relaxed as it was with the That's a different sound and a different tone. Compare. Too constricted. That's staying open. So these are really subtle changes. They'll make a big difference in your tone quality, and they'll make a huge difference as you're singing up higher. As you know, getting into your mix and head voice, it'll become a lifesaver for you to learn about vowel modification. Okay, so larynx, check, pharynx, check. Now we are at the soft palate, and I'm quickly going to pause and just take a look at these questions. Thank you guys so much for joining. Naushin, Emmanuel, hi. And Kevin was saying he's working on this today. And in one of the beginner courses, he was taught to hold his nose. And that's a great tip for singers who are singing with too much nasal sound. So if you're going, plugging your nose can help you to find that relaxed space without just letting all the sound come through your nose. Okay. Hi, Lindsay, Manuel, Sandrilia. Thank you so much for joining. All right. So we're at the soft palate. We're moving up your vocal tract. By the end of today, you will know your vocal tract. I do want to send an article your way. I'm going to just put it in the chat right now. It will walk you through some of these exercises that we're playing around with. So if you missed part of this, or you just you're a visual person and you want to see some of this written out, here's a great article for you. And that site is just excellent in general. Voice Science Works helps to describe some of these more sciencey ideas in an applicable, understandable way. So check that out after our lesson, though. Stay with me. Okay, so we're at our soft palate. Our soft palate it's also called the velum, or maybe you could pronounce it velum. Do you know that little dangly thing? Your little dangly thing, the uvula in the back of your mouth above your throat, that hangs down from your soft palate. So if you can find your uvula, little dangly thing, then you can find your soft palate because it's attached to that. It's right above it. You could also think about your soft palate in relation to your hard palate, which is just the roof of your mouth. So feel your hard palate with your tongue, and you'll know why it's called the hard palate, because your bone is right there. It's hard. Behind that, you can't really feel, probably without triggering your gag reflex, so don't do that. But behind that is your soft palate. We can feel our soft palate lift up whenever you yawn. The tricky thing about using a yawn for the soft palate is that our larynx also tends to drop when we yawn. And if we take a yawn too far, that'll constrict in a different way. So if I sing in a full yawn position, it's too much. I don't have any nasal quality, because nasality isn't bad. It's actually good. So anyways, what I typically will tell students is a pre-yawn, like you're just considering yawning, and you'll feel that soft palate lift just slightly. So what does the soft palate do? It makes your pharynx taller. So it's elongating that throat tube. And a taller palate typically results in, again, that darker, richer tone. It's also really helpful if you tend to be singing flat. Lifting up the soft palate can also help you sing in tune and be on top of the pitch rather than kind of reaching up to it. So again, the Mona Lisa smile. Another way to help lift up that soft palate gently is to make a K sound. So first, make a K, K sound. So that is articulation with your soft palate. If you make that K sound, you'll feel the back of your tongue is meeting your soft palate and then it's releasing. K, K. Now try making a K sound with an inhale instead of an exhale. So K, K. I'm releasing air forward. K, K, K. Now I'm inhaling while making a really, really gentle K sound. Okay, so try that. I'll give you a second to try it. And Pip is asking a great question. Can you take too much of a deep breath sometimes? Yes. Pip, we call that over breathing. And if I take in more air than the phrase I'm about to sing requires, then I have this extra air I'm not going to use. And I'm probably going to feel a bit of tension in my body to hold that air back. So Pip, the way we want to think about our breath is that it should match the phrase you're about to sing and the demands of that phrase. So each breath you take when you're singing, it's not always going to be the same volume. If I only have a short phrase to sing, I don't need that much air. Okay, Tanya is asking, is that the C tilting? Is that for the soft palate? How can you tell when your soft palate is lifting? Tanya, great question. So you can actually look at it in the mirror. You might need to shine a light in, but you will be able to see your soft palate lifting up. So you can go to a mirror, get a little flashlight or the light from your phone and shine it into the back of your mouth and you can look at your soft palate lift. If you just yawn, that'll clearly show your soft palate lifting as well. And then Tanya, the second way to tell if your soft palate is lifting is if there's a change in the tone quality. So if I'm singing, and it's a pretty neutral sound, maybe it's a little bit bright, and then I lift my palate, the tone is going to change. It's going to get, it'll sound a little bit more spacious, a little deeper, maybe not deeper in pitch, but just, more depth to the sound. So you should hear a difference in the tone when your soft palate's lifted. Another great exercise, Dane says, don't even know what's going on, but still watching. Hey, thanks for joining. We are about 30 minutes into an hour-long live lesson, so you have missed quite a bit of foundation, but you can join us. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so Tanya is on track. The other soft palate thing I like to do is the owl hoot. Ooh, ooh, or making a sound like a cuckoo clock. Cuckoo, cuckoo. That you're going to feel your soft palate lift and you're going to hear that spacious sound. That's different than if I go cuckoo, cuckoo with my soft palate low. Cuckoo, cuckoo, or ooh, ooh versus ooh, ooh. Very different tone quality. All right, next up, the tongue. So the tongue, let's just give kind of a general piece of advice for the tongue. You want to be careful of your tongue retracting or pulling back. If your tongue pulls back, it shortens or contracts the space around your larynx, and it makes it more difficult for your larynx to vibrate and move and do its job. So if the tongue is pulling back, no good. Typically, that's the problem with singers. It's usually not a problem of their tongue being too far forward. The problems that we might run into with the tongue, which we'll get into in a little bit, are the tongue bunching up, pulling too far back, ooh, versus ooh. So I'm going to move my tongue back, And you can hear how the sound starts to get really muffled and not good. Okay, so the tongue retraction is sometimes an issue. Also, the tongue being too high in the back can also be an issue. And we get the opposite problem there. We get too much nasal tone. He versus he. Okay, so those are two big issues with the tongue. So let us actually first, if you went to a mirror to see your soft palate, stay at the mirror or go to it to see your tongue. When we sing in general, we want the front of the tongue resting either behind or on top of the bottom teeth. So, if my tongue is pulling back, all of a sudden I can feel tension versus I feel that release. And maybe that's too far forward. Maybe I'll bring it back just a little bit. But if you are a singer whose tongue tends to pull back or bunch up, then a great exercise for you would be actually getting the tongue outside of your mouth completely, singing a phrase or singing an exercise with the tongue outside of the mouth. Pulling it back in. So let's make a short little phrase. Or then pulling the tongue back in, but keeping it relaxed. And being really aware of if it's pulling back again. Okay. So another, let's see. I want to kind of save issues for our issue component. I think that might be enough for the tongue right now. Okay, but basically, big takeaway about the tongue is that we don't want it pulling back. A good vowel to train a good like forward tongue position would be that E vowel. So E, you can feel that the front of your tongue comes all the way forward. E, and if you move from E to a vowel that your tongue is kind of jumping back on, that can be helpful. You're finding some stability with the front of your tongue. So let's go from maybe E to O. O, my tongue is pulling back, and let's say it's pulling back too much. Maybe I'm going E, O, and it's not a good tone anymore. E, O. By keeping the front of my tongue forward as it was on the E, now I'm able to keep that clarity of tone when I move to the O vowel. Okay, we are almost done with this section. We have two more little body parts to cover, the jaw and the lips. Okay, so jaw. This is a little counterintuitive. When the jaw drops, your vocal tract actually shortens slightly because your jaw swings back. It doesn't go directly down or forward. And you actually do see some singers bring their jaw forward, and it's not a great habit, but you will see that sometimes. But anyways, just dropping your jaw down, you'll notice it's not coming straight in line with my front lips. It's dropping and swinging back just slightly. So this ends up shortening our vocal tract slightly. When the jaw is more closed, your vocal tract is just slightly longer. So remember, shorter or smaller space, high frequencies get boosted, good for high pitches. Longer space, more low frequencies get boosted, good for lower pitches. If that's confusing you, forget I ever said it. But if if your jaw is tensing, getting stuck, it's going to transfer to the rest of your vocal instrument. So if I'm not letting my jaw, be free and flexible when I sing, oh, I can just feel it in the rest of my throat. So with your jaw, especially, sometimes it takes a little bit of, I don't want to use the word force, but I will, forcing the issue. So your jaw, you can actually start start massaging back here, and as you sing, ah, just bring those circles forward. Ah, 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 and then see if you can keep that same relaxation once you start singing without this little massage helper. I also like to use exercises like a ya, or just something that moves your jaw. So to make the ya, 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 your jaw has to move. So singing on like a ya, 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 causing your jaw to move constantly. That'll also sometimes help to prevent it from tensing, because when your muscle is moving, it's hard for it to tense and get stuck. Okay, another thing for the jaw, we want to train, this seems counterintuitive to what I just said, but if your jaw is jumping for the pitch, if you have to move your jaw to change pitch, that can be an issue. So if you have to go versus with maybe a little bit of movement, but not like a really jumpy movement, that can be limiting for you. If your jaw moves like crazy when you're singing different vowels, ma, me, mi, mo, mu, versus ma, me, mi, mo, mu. Those are two pretty common issues with the jaw. So what were they? Jumping for different pitches, and then having drastically different shapes depending on the vowel you're singing. So you can train some jaw independence by moving the pitch without moving the jaw too much. So get the jaw in a nice relaxed position. Or I know that seems counterintuitive because I was just talking about you don't want your jaw stuck, but this is for the specific issue of your jaw is jumping for the pitch or moving around like crazy for these different vowel shapes. Okay, last step in our vocal tract, the lips. So if our lips come forward as they do for an oo vowel, ooh, we have a longer vocal tract and kind of a darker tone. If our lips come back as they do for an E, we have a shorter vocal tract and a brighter tone. So if you're getting an overly bright tone, a pretty easy, quick fix will be just letting those lips relax more forward rather than pulling them back or keeping them tucked up. So if I'm singing, oh, say, can you see? And it's too bright. Oh, say, can you see? And now I'm more balanced because I'm letting my jaw relax. I'm letting my lips be a little bit more forward in this or O shape rather than a E shape. Okay. Whew. This is so much to cover in one lesson. I'm just racing through, and I hope you're keeping up with me. Okay, so vowels and resonance. We already touched on the fact that our vowel shape is our biggest way to control our resonance and to shape our vocal tract differently. So what we just did, you may have to do that work sometimes of, training some larynx neutrality, bringing your tongue more forward, bringing your lips more forward, things like that. But in general, when you're singing, vowels are going to be the way that we shape our vocal tract differently. So I want to give you a couple vowel families and vowel categories. So first, I think this is the easiest to understand. We've got narrow vowels, in which our vocal tract or our mouth opening is very small. We have medium vowels in which our mouth opening is kind of like neutral. And we have wide vowels in which our mouth is really wide. So those narrow vowels are oo and e. And of course, these are very different vowels. We know that tonally. But you can see our mouth is closed just in a different way. So ooh, my lips rounding forward are making it really closed. Ooh. And then e, my mouth being flat and wide is also closing my mouth in a different way. Narrow vowels are excellent for singing in head voice or singing like in low chest voice. They become problematic when we're trying to sing higher in chest voice. So if I misspoke there, what I meant to say was narrow vowels, good for head voice, good for low chest voice, not great for mix and high chest voice. So if you're going ooh or e without modifying that vowel, a lot of bad things are going to start happening. I mean, you can hear my tone is getting not great, and it's also starting to feel not great. And eventually, I'm probably going to crack if I take this up higher. Ooh, that's going to happen. Or I'm just going to strain. Ooh, and it doesn't feel good. And you've probably been there. You've probably experienced that. So vowel modification is going to be our friend. So the big tip is that is your best friend when it comes to vowel modification. So we can get into the weeds, we can get into the nitty gritty, and we will a little bit. But if you only remember one thing about vowel modification, make it the vowel. The vowel is where you start, and it's where you can shade problematic vowels too. So we actually have a video on narrow vowel modification that goes into this very issue, oo and e, and we take you really slowly through starting on going to oo, and then you end up with something more like that's different than ooh, ooh. Okay, and we do the same thing with e. So I can get that link for you, and I'll probably just put it in the video description. I won't spend any more time on that because there's a video for you on that very topic. Okay, medium vowels, and are great for mixing, and they're kind of great overall. So wide range exercises will often use an or an or help, or as in book. So as in up, mum, 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 or nice voice crack for you, as in book, bu, 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 bu. Okay, those are awesome for wide range, and they're great for medium range too, mixed voice. Tanya is asking, how do you know when to change or modify the vowels for head voice if it doesn't fully sound weak, like not enough strength? So, good question, Tanya. It depends on what kind of sound you're going for. Are you going for this more classical sound? Are you going for more contemporary pop sound? So answer me that first. Okay, and then last, wide vowels. So we started with narrow, medium, and now wide. A and a. Notice our mouth is kind of flat, but also it's open. A, as opposed to E, which is wide but closed. So A and are great for chest voice, but again, they're not so great for middle or mixed voice, because what happens when you sing higher on an A, is you start to shout. Your larynx comes up. All of these muscles are like, let's tense. This sounds like fun. So again, is your best friend, and we're going to shade or modify towards a, bringing my mouth into more of an shape just on the top there. A versus a with no modification. Okay. So, let's quickly run through some of those common resonance issues and solutions. Lindsay, Tanya, and Manuel are all talking about rock or contemporary pop. So what I think that you guys are getting at is you're singing in head voice, but it's that really pointy, edgy sound, that ah kind of sound. Tell me if that's what you're talking about. Okay. I'll think I'll wait for you to answer. I'm just gonna get a drink of water. So if that's what you're talking about, yeah. Okay. So Tanya's saying twang. Yes. So remember way back in the beginning of this lesson how I said that sometimes constriction in the pharynx is a good thing? This is one of those times. So when we want that kind of bright, edgy sound and we're up in head voice, we actually want to shape our vocal tract now like a little bit of a megaphone situation. So there's going to be a little bit of constriction in the back and openness in the front. So exercises to build that would be first finding your head voice placement. Ooh, trying it on an E, and then staying up in head voice. Ah, A. And seeing if you can feel that same thing we felt with the E vowel, feeling it kind of come forward rather than ah, feel like it's going back behind you and getting lighter. So kind of those bratty exercises like nay and na are great. Nay, na, because we have a smaller opening in the back and a wider opening in the front. And that's really excellent for that kind of what I would call like the Sam Smith or Maroon 5 kind of head voice sound. You could call it mix, but it's like definitely more of a head voicey mix. Versus so yes, I think the key there, Tanya, Manuel, and Lindsay, is going to be staying up in your head voice and then finding that twang with some nasalized, bratty sounds. So here, it's okay if our larynx is coming up a bit. We're shortening that space because remember, less space boosts higher frequencies. And that's good for us here because we want that higher frequency boost. So I would say start on an E, or an A, nay, nay, nah. And if you're going nay, nah, give me uglier. Students are so afraid to make ugly sounds, but that's how we get to the finished sound with that power. We're not going to build power if we're not willing to go to that super, ugly place, unfortunately. So let yourself sound ugly. Nah, no, nay. And start to build up that, what Tanya's talking about, that twang, which is, some constriction, but it's constriction that's okay, and that we actually want in this case. Okay. Common issues. Please ask questions if you want, but I'm going to just run through these issues and give you some quick fixes for them. So if you are getting a sound that's too nasal, there's two things I want you to consider. One is the back of your tongue, and two will be your larynx. So if the back of your tongue is very high, you can hear it has that really edgy, cutting nasal quality. And if I let the back of my tongue drop, now it's way cut down on the nasality. So learning some tongue independence, you could also do that same thing by moving from to E. Because your tongue's going to be lower for that. I, and going to an E vowel without letting the back of your tongue shoot up. Okay? Larynx being too high. We'll go back to some of those dopey exercises, those bum 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 bum, that'll keep our larynx lower or relatively stable. If you're going nay 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 or yeah 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 yeah, and that's not the sound you're trying to train. Yeah 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 yeah, bum bum bum. You can hear the slightly dopier larynx quality. And again, don't be afraid to make an unfinished, uglier sound. You're not going to stop at the super dopey sound. You're not going to stop at the super twangy sound, but they're helping you. Those are your training wheels. Okay, so use them. Please, please use them, and don't get stuck in this trap of I always have to sound pretty and I always have to make finished sounds. That will really, really inhibit you from making progress if you're not willing to experiment and make some ugly sounds sometimes. Okay, if this is related, if your sound is overly bright or thin, same issues as the too much nasality. So typically it'll be your larynx is a little bit too high, and you can go back to that exercise we used at the beginning, the ew or eo. You could also do the dopey, mum or bub. And a kind of a good way to think about this, one of my favorite voice teachers describes it this way. When we're talking about laryngeal height, super high larynx, we have SpongeBob, and then super low larynx, we have Patrick. So if you are a, person who likes to do impressions, you can feel that major difference between really high and really nasal SpongeBob voice and then a really low larynx Patrick voice. Okay. I'm not a good impressionist. That's just probably a lot of you can do better than that. That just was. Okay. If you're getting and Kevin, I see your question. Beware of Crocodiles is saying, can you sing a Spanish song in English and French music? Sing a Spanish song in English. So that would mean translating. Can you give me a suggestion? That'd be awesome if you had a specific suggestion. And then Kevin, I see your question. Sophia, you are so welcome. Okay, too nasal, overly bright, pretty related. So back of your tongue's too high, larynx might also be too high. Second or third, if you have a dark, muffled sound, this is the opposite problem. So your tongue might be retracting and your larynx might be too low. So my favorite exercise for both of these things, actually, letting your larynx, move a little bit and not getting stuck in that dopey position, and also bringing that tongue forward, is to train on an NG. So the NG shape, if you say the word sing or hung, you're going to feel the back of your tongue is way, way high. It's meeting your soft palate, but you'll also feel that the front of your tongue is relaxed. So sing, hung, and then sliding on an NG. You're probably not going to go because that's really hard to do. So singing on the NG will just naturally, your larynx will rise a little bit if it's getting stuck in that dopey position. And then again, if you're getting that dark muffled sound because your tongue is pulling back, you can start on an NG and then drop your tongue to the vowel you're trying to sing. So let's say you're singing and your tongue is way back in your mouth. Start on an NG. Already our tone's better. And maybe that's too far forward. Maybe you can split the difference. That'll get you closer. So NG brings your tongue up, and then also that E vowel will bring your tongue forward. And so you can use that as your foundation. E, and get a sound that's not quite so dark and muffled. Okay, and last, if you're getting just a sound that's tense and constricted, I want you to consider both your tongue and your jaw. These two can tend to kind of work together sometimes, and sometimes not in a good way. So what we want to do is build some tongue and jaw independence. So we want to be able to keep our jaw in one position and then have our tongue move. So an example of that would be moving from an to an Let me think of a better example. One sec. I'm going to look up a better example for you. Okay. Almost there. Almost there. Okay, I guess that's a better example. So if I move from and feel my tongue a little bit further back, and then move to E and it's further forward, I can keep my jaw in the same spot as I move between those vowels. You can see your tongue moving really clearly there. So try that to get some independence, to get your tongue moving independently of your jaw. And then same thing, let your jaw move while your tongue stays in the same spot. So let's think. I think there's a better example than that. My mind is kind of blanking. There is a video I want to share with you, though. Actually, two videos. So one is from another great teacher here on YouTube. Let me find that quickly. Tongue, jaw, independence. And then that other video I wanted to get you. This might take a while. The other one I want to get you is the narrow vowel modification. Okay, here you go. So here's a good video on jaw and tongue independence. And then that narrow vowel modification video that we mentioned earlier. How long is this video? It's 8 minutes. Easy. Okay, so there's the narrow vowel modification one. Okay, cool beans. So this is our last point, our last troubleshooting point. If you're getting a tense, constricted tone and feeling, then releasing your tongue and not letting it pull back into your mouth. And then same with the jaw. Ya, 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 ya. You can obviously do that on an exercise or on a song you're singing. Yes. Okay. That was a lot. I think we did well. I think so. So I do have a couple resources for you within the video description already, and I'll copy and paste that narrow vowel modification one as well. But some resources for you if you want to continue down this track. If you're a 30-day singer student, we have a Getting Better Tone tutorial. Here on YouTube, we have a video on how to achieve a smooth, rich tone, and we just go into lowering the larynx, lifting the soft palate, and then some vowel modification. So that one's pretty short. And then there is a 1-hour live lesson on tone as well, where we don't go so deep into the anatomy as we did today. We focus more on the finished sounds. Okay, so last quick note. We talked a bit about the sound being forward versus the sound being back kind of thing. Didn't talk about that very much. But that is sometimes referred to as placement. So when people talk about resonance or tone, oftentimes you're going to hear talk about forward placement or back placement. And I just want to say one thing on that. Placement can be confusing for beginning singers because it's a sensation. It's not how you create the sound. So what we talked about today, moving our tongue forward, our soft palate, our jaw, like all of those very specific adjustments, those are how you create the sound. And when I was taking voice lessons, a lot of times my teacher would use, not all my teachers, I've had really wonderful teachers, but some teachers would talk about sending the sound backward. And I just didn't know what they were talking about. And I think what they were trying to get at is lifting the soft palate. They just didn't use that language. So where placement and sensation comes in for you as a singer is, think of that as like the ripple effect, not the stone. So it is important to memorize sensation. So let's say you find that brightness of an E vowel and you want that brightness on another vowel. It might be helpful to go for that same sensation, and where you might feel a little more like vibration in your nose. That might help you, but just know that you are making an adjustment, a physical adjustment. Your brain alone can't just change your sound. So we sometimes use the brain and visualizations, mimicry, impressions. We use those as shortcuts. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that shortcuts are fine if they work for you, but like a lot of times it's going to be singer specific. So if you have a teacher telling you like, put the sound back, you should feel sensation here. It's okay if you don't. The most important thing is the resulting tone quality and then memorizing what it feels like when you get that tone quality you're going for. Does that make sense? So if you're going for this darker tone, what does that feel like for you? Memorize that sensation. Ooh. So for me, I do kind of think about the soft palate lifting, and creating space in the back of my throat. And that helps me to access that same tone when I'm singing a song. Okay, I hope that made sense. Just wanted to throw out there, if teachers on YouTube or wherever else you're getting information are talking about placement and singing into the mask and I don't know, stuff like that, if it doesn't work for you, it's okay. It works for some singers, it doesn't work for others. And if it's not working for you, then the step you want to take is learning more about your vocal anatomy and how to adjust your resonators like we went into today. And then if you want to use that sensation or impression or whatever as a shortcut to get there, great. That's kind of what we did with the whole SpongeBob and Patrick thing. It's not your brain that alone is creating that noise. It's your brain is like, I want to sound like SpongeBob or I want to sound like Patrick. And then your, vocal fold and your vocal tract are adjusting to make that sound. Okay. Anyways, it's important to learn about your anatomy and how to adjust everything because sometimes just visualization doesn't work. And that can be very frustrating and lead to you feeling stuck. Okay. I got to let you guys go. This has been so fun though. So Tyler is letting us know he has, oh, by the way, thank you to Tyler because this was his suggestion. Thanks, Tyler. And next suggestion is rhythm. I like that idea. Okay. And just one other question. Ooh, Sophia has an important question and I need to answer it. Sophia's asking about vocal health, and I can't leave that question hanging. So if you need to go, you can absolutely go. I'm just going to give Sophia an article on vocal health, vocal damage, super important stuff. And we also did a live lesson on vocal health, Sophia, so check that out. Pip, do you always bring water when you sing? Pip, I bring water everywhere. I don't get in the car without water. that's how yeah, it's never far. Okay, you're welcome, Sophia. And then the last question was to Kevin, if you're still here, Kevin. How long does this stuff take to become second nature? Kevin, I wish I could give you an exact time frame. I really wish I could. I guess the only person to answer that is going to be you. But this is the whole point of practicing every day, is to build this muscle memory so that these things become second nature. But I will say, Kevin, it's 100% not the case that every singer is going to know exactly what to do in exactly every moment. Professional singers take voice lessons for this reason. They need help, troubleshooting things, and a teacher can hear things that you're not hearing. So yeah, I would say when it comes to singing, it's not like you reach this point where you have it mastered, you've arrived, no more learning needs to be done, I'm done. No, it's a continuing process because your body continues to change. Your voice is going to continue to change as you age, regardless of how old you are right now. So, yeah, I would say for some of the more basic stuff that you're starting with, like taking belly breaths instead of big clavicular breaths, I think that could start to become second nature in a matter of weeks to months. Probably weeks. All of this nitty-gritty stuff like vowel modification, I think that takes a bit more conscious effort and troubleshooting. But it's a fun journey. It's fun. And I hope lessons like this today help to kind of demystify some things for you and give you some really practical tools. Okay. I gotta let you go. So sad to go, but I'll see you next week. Most likely same time, but just check the channel. Every now and then I have a schedule conflict and have to do our live lesson on a different day. So just keep an eye out for that. It'll always be posted, sometime in advance, and it's scheduled so you can set a reminder, save the link, however you do that. So, okay. Thank you guys. Thank you for being here. You've been wonderful. Thank you for all your questions. I appreciate them so much. And I appreciate you guys for watching and being committed to learning about your voice, becoming a smarter, better singer. So that's awesome. All right. See you guys.